today, Sir Cliff and Sir Tim Rice finally announced who'll play Cathy, and it wasn't me. It's a part any Cliff fan would give her right arm for. She is Helen Hobson, no stranger to musicals, with My Fair Lady aspects of love and sometimes passion to her credit. I met all three of them at yesterday's press conference. Helen, how long have you known? How long have you had to keep it a secret?
Just under 2 years. And today I can actually say it out loud. I'm playing Cathy in Heathcliff.
We can start calling her Helen Hobson. We've been calling her the Cathy character. So it's nice to actually be able to refer to her as Helen.
That's right, it's great.
So what were you looking for in your Cathy?
Well, it's a very subjective thing. I mean, obviously, when I read the book originally, I always thought I was Heathcliff, even when I was 16 at school. But you've got an idea in your mind of what Cathy would look like. And when Helen came onto the stage to do the audition, I just thought she looked like my dream of Cathy. And it's a very subjective thing. The fact that she then went on to do a great bit of an audition was fantastic. A great perk. I thought, wow, she doesn't only look good and look right, but she sings and she acts. And I think it's our good fortune that we met together.
Were you a bit nervous, Helen?
I was very nervous, yes. But in the same way for sort of any other audition, really, because I think at the end of the day you're trying to sell a product, and the product is Helen Hobson. So you've got to put aside the fact that Sir Cliff Richard is sitting in the audience and this is an enormous job. So yes, I was, but I had to try and,
be a tough cookie as well.
Yeah.
See, isn't it funny, see? She was nervous of me, and I'm Mr. Nice Guy. That's what they keep telling me.
Easy Mr. Nice Guy to work with.
Yeah. But I don't think that precludes him from acting somebody who's not quite such a Mr. Nice Guy. But as Cliff said himself, we all have demons inside us, and it's in a way easier to play somebody bad than somebody good.
Oh yes, I'd underline that.
And it's often the bad characters who seize all the attention, who are the easier ones to write for, who are the ones that the audience secretly sympathizes with, because it's much easier to identify with somebody who's flawed than somebody who's perfect.
I reckon this is a great chance for you, isn't it? I mean, you can now go on stage and be nasty.
Acting, it seems to me, is being something that you're not for a short period of time, be it every day, but it's like 2.5 hours that you're something that you're not. And whereas I might have sat on my hands during, say, press conferences around the world, and some impertinent little person of half my age and half my experience asked me some terrible question, I really want to hit him, but I don't. And afterwards, I think the success is that I didn't hit him. Now, on stage, I'm going to be directed, and I'm going to be told to lash out at Isabella, both physically and verbally.
Is it true that you've wanted to play this part ever since your teacher at school said, no, you can't play Heathcliff, but you can play Ratty in Wind in the Willows?
Well, she didn't say I couldn't play Heathcliff, because it never crossed my mind in those days that I'd ever even have a career of any type. But she did say to me that I ought to be in the Dramatic Society. She said, you read well. And so I joined the Dramatic Society, but really against my will, because all the other guys thought, oh, sissy and all that. But I really enjoyed it, and I did. My first big role was Ratty. And she's the first person who got me to sing on stage, because I had to sing down among the backwaters through the rushes tall, ducks are a-dabbling, up tails all. And so I got my first opportunity to sing because of the School Dramatic Society.
You've taken quite a few knocks for doing this, A, because of your age, and B, because it's straight acting.
Yes, I don't think I've been hit for my age as yet. I mean, the one thing that I've brought out, certainly at our press conference, is that really the press have done one good thing for me. They've told me for years now that I am the Peter Pan of pop. And of course I am convinced that at 55 I'm the perfect age to play a 38-year-old. I mean, they've told me that for years, so they can't withdraw that statement anymore.
He's often thought of as a large man physically. Have you been bodybuilding?
Yeah, I'm still doing it. But it's getting more and more obvious to me that I can't get as big as I'd like. I'm already 7 pounds heavier than I was 18 months ago.
Doesn't it go on in the wrong place?
I'm on some of the scenes.
No.
in the dark scenes. Mine.
In actual fact, when you say
Heathcliff's ghost, played by Tim Rice.
we always assume, because he is a larger-than-life character, but there's no actual physical description of him. None whatsoever. He could have been an absolute weed, for all we know. Where he wasn't weedy was in the way that he dealt with people. He was a vindictive, vicious character. So I've got to be larger than life in that area rather than physically. But I mean, I am making the attempt. I still do my press-ups and sit-ups, and it's quite painful. But I mean, as I say, I'm 7 pounds heavier than when I first started the project, and it's not fat.
You've already sung together. How did it go?
It went
It
really well.
was quite fast, actually. Everybody was quite
Very
surprised.
fast.
Yeah.
She was very quick. You know, I was expecting us to take all day, and she took all of about half an hour. But it was really good. And again, that bringing up the record, it's really important that we sound right together, and we do sound right together. The other factor is, do we look right together? And when we did the video for the wedding, we looked right together.
What about the investment? It's a big risk for you.
Well, life's a risk. You know, every time I do a tour, every time I make a record, I've said almost annually for 37 years, I've said to my management group, supposing it all ends this year. You know, supposing, because there's no guarantees for anything at all. So in every show that ever goes on, there's this big question mark, will it, won't it? And in the end, really all we as a team can do, well, Tim's already almost done his bit. I mean, he's given me lyrics that I've never had the opportunity of singing lyrics quite like this before. These lyrics are so emotive and emotional that it's all there. And so it eases the idea of the risk, because I feel that we do have something good to offer, but in the end, the public will decide. And in the case of this show, I think it is more to do with the public than, say, even the press, dare I say. Because I think my public will come and support me. If they hate it, then we're in trouble. Well, I say trouble. We'll have still had a wonderful time and done it to the best of our ability.
Is it a sung-through musical, or is there dialogue?
There's a fair amount of dialogue, but there's a lot of music, and most of the dialogue, I think, will be underscored. So there will be a continuous feel of music, which I think is important, because it can be a bit jolting sometimes if you go from a big number and then suddenly they're talking and then back to another big number. So it'll be much, I mean, all shows these days tend to be much more music. I mean, the old book musical is slightly out at the moment. So it will be an awful lot of music, but definitely quite a bit of dialogue.
Some of the things have to be said. I've always believed that really, if you want to communicate something, the best way is to speak it. If you really want to know how he felt when he digs down to her grave, you could sing it, but it's going to be much better when he speaks it, when there's no doubt.
Like Puccini and Mozart would probably argue with you there, wouldn't they?
Well, that's probably one of the reasons why I don't like Puccini and Mozart. It's just one of those things, isn't it? It's a subjective thing, but quite often my one criticism of musicals is that because it's a musical, they feel they just have to have a bit of music. So instead of actually saying, would you like another cup of coffee? How about you, Tim? They'll go, would you like another cup of coffee? How about you, Tim? No, there's no song there. It's just a piece of music to get you over this little sequence. Now, we're hoping not to do that, and the underscoring is the greatest way. So you still have the musical feel, so that when we are talking together, if it is leading to a song, okay, there's a little something that happens musically that eases the bump and the jarring, perhaps. But I think it's really important, particularly with a project like this, that we do speak some of it. The one thing we have in our favor, Tim's given us lyrics, and it's all about the emotions that these people feel. There are no songs about going to the Grange for a party tonight. Let's go to the Grange. You know, they're all about the way people feel, nothing to do with the periphery things.
Helen, I've seen you in My Fair Lady as Eliza Doolittle, and you're now in Stephen Sondheim's Passion. How does the music in Heathcliff compare?
I think it'll be slightly different. I mean, I don't know quite so I haven't sort of heard the Cathy songs yet particularly. I've just heard some of the duets on the album. I think it is a slightly softer thing. For example, with Passion, I'm sort of operatic soprano. So, but there may be elements of that. I mean, that's the kind of thing that we will discover in the rehearsal, but it's also slightly more rocky, perhaps, than I've done before. It's
a very heavy story, Wuthering Heights. How do you lighten it to avoid 2.5 hours of doom and gloom?
Well, there are a couple of moments, of course, where, for instance, when Cathy and Heathcliff, as kind of late teenagers, or early teenagers, go to Thrushcross Grange for the first time, it's because they've heard the music. And they go there and they look through the window, and there's this party on the Grange, and it's Isabella's birthday, we're going to make it. And there'll be this little swinging thing that will slowly grow and grow till the whole stage with projection. Hope this is projecting. I don't know what rehearsals are going to bring out. But the idea is to bring and lighten it so that while you see them growing, you've got this magic thing of color and choreography. And then, of course, he goes to 3 different countries in our production when he runs away. He's going to go to China, India, and Africa, which is where they went at that period. When the Brits went out empire building days, they came back rich. No one knows how they made their money, or quite often didn't know how they make their money. And we're going to take Heathcliff through those periods. He won't tap dance his way across Africa, but he'll be in the choreography. And there's moments when we can make it up and bright. But the story is basically down. There are a few laughs.
And he won't be going there on a red bus?
No. A red camel. Double-decker camel.
Cliff on a double-decker camel.